So next installment, let's talk about aftermarket options. And you know, the natural reaction is, why in the world would you mess with a GT3? Why would you mess with a perfect car? Well, in my opinion, no car is perfect. So I've done some modifications. There obviously isn't as much to do with a car like this as there are on some other cars. I've only done a couple of things, so this should be a pretty short video. But I did want to sort of share my thoughts on aftermarket, and I may eat these words, but there really isn't anything else that I want to do to this car. I'm going to lower this a little bit, get rid of some of this wheel gap. You can't put spacers on the car, not that I would want to. It's pretty flush as it is, especially in the rear. Not bad from a flushness perspective. I'm not going to do aftermarket wheels. The only thing I may do is have these resurfaced or refinished because they're all chipped up. But I really only have, let's see, 3 aftermarket modifications. Oh no, 4 aftermarket modifications on this car. So I'll take you through those and my thought process on why. If any of you watch the videos, you've seen the 25 exhausts that I've had on this thing. So I've got that settled now. But I'll explain to you what my thought process is there and why I would change anything in such a perfect car. So this is kind of hard to see here, but I don't know if you guys have seen any pictures of the car. Just go to the website. You can see 1,000 pictures of this. But one of the first things I did was remove the badge. I removed the GT3 and then left the Porsche. I didn't really like that, so I removed that. This is a decal or a sticker off a 997. So it's a little bigger than the 991 Cup Car GT3 sticker. These stickers are super expensive. Actually, a really cool dude who was going to put them on the side of his car on the door panels decided he was going to do red and had made these or ordered them, and it was really cool. He just sent it to me rather than me having to pay like $100-something for this stupid badge. I love it. So it's clean, it's neat. Things don't get stuck in it. It stays, doesn't get dirty. Real simple modification, and obviously something that that is a personal preference. But I usually don't like badges. I just think that the GT3 and then the 991 911 sort of needs a badge. It looks a little weird without it. I tried that on the Carrera S. I do have a license plate frame. I freaking hate license plate frames, but this GMG one sort of does the job. Something about this car, same thing with the Carrera S, just didn't look quite right without a license plate frame. And then lastly is the GMG center section. I know you can't see this here, but you can get on the channel and watch all the videos of me flying around next to the camera. The GMG is the exact exhaust that I was hoping to or exact sound I was hoping to accomplish with an exhaust. So if we talk a little bit about my thought process on exhausts, I know I've shared this a lot already, but what I wanted, this car sounds great from the factory. The disadvantage to this car is that it's much different than the Carrera S. The Carrera S, and most cars that have valves, you press the button and the valves open. Well, maybe not most, but at least the Carrera S did, and that's how I think it should be. The valves, when the PSE, the Porsche Sport Exhaust button is off, the valves are closed, and then they open up when they need to. You don't want to restrict power. The valves make the car make less power, pretty plain and simple. So, and I know people argue with me about that all the time, but whatever. And I observed it on the dyno. You can feel it in the car, but what do I know? So, with the Carrera S, you push the button, the valve's open. You can hear it. It's open, right? At any rate of speed. Whereas if the PSE button's off, then they open up at like 3,000 or 4,000 RPMs, depending on throttle input. And the valves on these cars are vacuum actuated. They're not actuated by like BMW and some of the other cars that have valves are electronically actuated, where there's an actual electronic box where they can sort of variably adjust the valves. Maybe they can adjust them half open, partly open, or fully closed, fully open. The GT3, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's capable of doing that. I've had this exhaust apart 6 or 8 times, and so the vacuum lines on this, I think, is 1 or 0, on or off. And when you press the button, it doesn't open the valves. It just changes, in my estimation, from what I've learned in all this experimentation, is that when the PSC button is pressed, the valves don't open any differently. It's just that the ECU is compensating air-fuel wise for the fact that the valves are restricting or creating more back pressure. So I observed this on the dyno, if the button's off, then the power, the torque curve looks like this, and then kind of clips upwards. The power, so you have a flat and a little dip and then up. Whereas if the PSC button is on, you have a much more linear sort of increase in torque output. It's not huge, maybe 15, 20 foot-pounds of torque, but in a 3,200-pound car, that's a big difference. 3,100-pound car, that's a huge difference. You can sort of, that's a noticeable, sort of measurable difference. In a car that has 400 or 500 foot-pounds of torque, it makes a big difference. Doesn't make as big of a difference. So what I wanted is, one, I want to get rid of that valve operation. So the first thing I did was disconnect the valves, and then I went and tested it to make sure I wasn't losing power, and we made more power in all instances. Wide open throttle, moderate throttle, running to red line, just running to 5,000 RPMs, different third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. It really didn't matter. The car made either the same or slightly more, probably negligible, the amount of difference in power. But what I wanted is, if I'm going to disconnect the valves to get rid of that goofy operation of opening and closing, then I just don't want to detriment, because everybody was telling me how much power I'm going to lose. So I've tested it, and despite the fact that most people disagree with me, or many people, maybe not most, but many people disagree with me, the car makes more power with the valves disconnected. At least, let's just say it doesn't lose power, in fairness, because I didn't do 100 dyno runs, I only did 25. So, I tried all these different exhaust combinations, and basically what I wanted is, I wanted something that was nasty, but refined. I don't want to be driving around ghetto blasting, the exhaust sound. But I want it to sound nasty. I mean, it's a nasty looking car, but I don't want it super droney and super annoying. So I did the Sharkworks, and then I tried all the different FVD options, and I did the Chris Smith, and then now I have the GMG, and the GMG is the right option for me. What I learned is that the side muffler, the design of those side mufflers is really, there's a reason why they're there. They are heavy. I would like to get them off the car. But for the sound that I'm looking for, under the conditions that I'm looking for it, the lesson that I've learned is that I have to retain the side mufflers. There's a big muffler right here, so that's that's what I have. The side mufflers with the GMG center bypass with the valves disconnected. By default, I press the PSC button on just in case the ECU is actually doing something. I did measure a little bit more power with the PSC button on and the valves disconnected. I haven't done any measurements with the GMG, but I would suspect it's going to be very similar to what it was with the Sharkworks. So I have the sound I'm looking for. There is more drone with the GMG than there is with the Sharkworks, but it's not, it's not a big deal. It's certainly not as much drone as when I had the factory center section and the J pipes that the side mufflers deleted. And also had a resonance too as well. So that's the exhaust saga and why I have that. Now my main poser option is the cage, the sort of the half cage. I have a GMG harness bar, RSR harness bar. I'm not going to put harnesses in, but I think it looks cool. So let me add some ISO here, come off this a little bit, and kind of see what it looks like. Honestly, I'm not even making this up. There's a massive change, very, very noticeable change in structural rigidity when I added this harness bar, this bar to the car. The seatbelt actually connects to it. You can see what it looks like. I had it done in silver. Actually, they had one in silver that matches the interior that I really liked. I know you're supposed to do it the same color as the car. I wanted to do something a little different, and luckily it's my car, so I can do whatever the heck I want. But the GMG bar does add some significant structural rigidity. You only have to cut the carpet. You can't see it here, but it's right sort of in the center of the screen. You only have to cut the carpet a tiny little bit. So this is something I'll always leave in the car. And then doing the half cage is better for a guy like me because because then I can put the seat back all the way if I need to. I have it almost all the way back. You can see the difference here. The passenger seat's all the way back. I like to sit a little more upright. But that's the GMG harness bar. I love it. It's one of my favorite modifications I've ever done. Oh, you know what? I also failed to mention, and I failed to mention this on the M3. I have a blend mount with the Escort Passport Max. Not the 2. The 2 doesn't really. The 2 is not necessary for someone like me. And I'm not using the traffic alerts and the app and all that stuff. I just want it to beep if there's a cop nearby using radar. In Florida, almost everybody uses radar, so it does a good job. And I like the Passport better. I had a Valentine 1 for like a decade. I've also had an old Escort, like the custom integrated version in my original S2000. The problem is the new one, the 9500 Ci, is like installed, $3,000 or $4,000, and they got 2 cars. So, although I'd love to have that, it's just too much to do that whole thing. And who knows how long I'm going to have a car. So I do a blend mount. I hardwire to the fuse box, so it turns off and on with the car, and use the Passport Max. I really like it. It does. It's not as sensitive. It's certainly. I don't think it's as good as the Valentine 1, but with the Valentine 1, you have to do all kinds of crazy stuff to plug an OBD2 port with the Savvy unit to get rid of a lot of false alarms with because it senses your speed. And the nice thing about the Valentine 1 is it tells you where the alarms or where the radar is coming from. I have this set to tell me how many there are. I just don't know which way it's coming from. But you get a beep and you slow down. With the Valentine 1, you get a beep and it's just one of the thousands of other beeps that you get. And I understand you get rid of pop radar and X-band and stuff like that, but still, even with my Valentine 1 calibrated, I always got significantly more false alarms. This one with the GPS on board actually screens out the stuff that tends to repeat, and then I get to keep X-band on just in case someone has a really old radar detector. So I have that option, or that aftermarket sort of modification. And then the big modification in here, if you've seen any of the videos, I upgraded the stereo. What I wanted was simple, relatively lightweight, and what I simply have is the factory PCM. Underneath the passenger seat, I have a Moscone processor, so I'm grabbing the low-level output from the PCM. It's going to the Moscone. The Moscone is then feeding the amplifier. I have a Genesis Series 3 4-channel amp up front in the front trunk. And Sound and Motion made me all the plates and everything, so you can't really tell. Everything looks factory. I have a Dyne audio separate, so 6.5s in the door, 1-inch silk dome tweeters in the factory location, which of course the amp is then feeding the crossovers underneath the seat, and then we're feeding the speakers. And I've had it tuned by Sound and Motion. I also have a sub control here, which allows me to adjust the sort of sub volume that's integrated into where the cigarette lighter was. It sounds awesome. I mean, this is a really noisy car, so it's how often are you gonna sit with the car off and listen to music? But the sound package plus is so bad and I've become accustomed to the interior, and this is so nice, so comfortable for such a high performance car, and yet the sound system was so bad. And I know most people say just turn it off, listen to the motor, and I do a lot. But I'm cruising to the office in the morning and not driving like an idiot. Sometimes I take this car a couple days a week. I want to listen to some music. It's the time that I listen to music in the car. I don't listen to it really anywhere else. Maybe in the garage sometimes when I'm messing around, because I have Dyne audio speakers in the garage as well. But Dyne just works with me. I like the silk dome sound rather than maybe a little fancier, newer technology like a ribbon tweeter or we wouldn't have electrostatic in the car, but like Martin Logan electrostats or some sort of metal dome or titanium dome tweeter. I prefer the good old-fashioned soak dome. So the system does what I want. The woofer is up in the footwell here. I couldn't even show it to you if you wanted to see it. It's 6 inches deep. Basically, it sits at the same sort of level as the pedals do, maybe a little bit more sunk in. So the passenger is not really restricted too much unless you're like 6'8" or something. And then I probably don't want you riding in my car because it weighs it down too much. So nothing in the rear. The rears are disconnected. So all I have is the two fronts. The center's disconnected. Actually, I took the center out, which was just a 3-inch paper cone mid-range driver. And I took the 3-inch mid-range driver out of the doors as well. So 6.5 tweet, amp up front. The amp is channel 1 and 2 is about 75 watts per channel, which is, that's RMS. It's underrated. I'm sure it's making considerably more power than that. The channels 1 and 2 go into the fronts, and the front separate pair, and then I'm bridging channels 3 and 4, which is giving about 250 watts RMS to the 10-inch woofer. It's an Illusion Audio 10-inch down-firing woofer, and then I had I bought Derek, who owns Sound in Motion. I bought him a plane ticket, and he came down and tuned it for me, so it sounds great. So anyway, those are the aftermarket modifications. We have the GMG cage. We have the GMG bypass, center bypass. We have the decal. I have the Escort installed, and then the stereo. The only other thing I'm going to do to this car is lower it a little bit. I'll set a level here on the door frame. I want to keep the factory rake near 0. So rake is how much the rear end sits up, or how much the nose dives in the car. And from what I understand and what I've read, you're better off keeping a 0-degree rake in the car. And I have some buddies who are big into the actual driving the car who have told me that. So when I do lower it, I'm going to lower it a little bit just to get rid of the wheel gap and dial in that rake just in case it is a little bit off from the factory. So that's it, guys. Those are the modifications. I've already told you the listing. Make sure if you haven't seen the listing of my options and why, then check that one out. And I do want to do a video on. I may set the Sony action cams up in the car and go drive it and maybe sort of explain or give sort of a review and show some of the details of the car if you haven't seen the pictures of it. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more stuff.